There are days when the pulse of the bay runs faster, when a line on the whiteboard changes the temperature of an entire season. Today is one of those days. I'm bringing you a complete breakdown, what I'm hearing, how the cap math could work under the new apron rules. The Bulls leverage and asks two trade frameworks that actually make sense. The on-court fit with Stephen Curry and our veteran core, the risks nobody wants to say out loud, and the timeline that defines whether this becomes a February earthquake or a July retool. I'll unpack the rotations, the pick protections, the ripple effects on spacing and defensive coverages, and how this move would recalibrate our identity without breaking what makes us the Warriors. Stay with me till the end, because the real reveal the version of the rumor that front offices would actually sign off on arrives when the logic is undeniable. Before we talk names, we have to talk needs. Our front court has lived on craft and connectivity, dribble handoffs, split action, short roll reads, the kind of basketball that turns screens into puzzles. But across long playoff series, the equation gets harder without consistent backline rebounding, without a big who can punish switches in the deep post, and without a spacer at the 5 who keeps the weak side tagger frozen. That's where this conversation begins. We need rim protection by committee, yes, but we also need sustainable shot creation that doesn't require Steph to be a flamethrower for 40 minutes. We need second chance points when the shooting goes cold. And in an era where second apron rules squeeze every mistake, we need a center whose skills amplify Steph's gravity, not just ride it, zoom out to lead dynamics. Veteran centers with real two-way utility don't move unless three forces align. The selling team believes a reset is wiser than running in circles. The buying team has the salary ballast and draft scaffolding to make it painless on paper. And the players' camp likes the destination enough to cooperate on timing. Chicago checks the first box whenever they're stuck between mediocrity and a half-measure rebuild. We check the second because our cap sheet, even under the apron, still has tradable mid-tier deals and a pick map that, with careful Stepien spacing, can produce multiple firsts and swaps without emptying the cupboard. The third? That's the whisper lane. And it's exactly where this rumor lives. Let's be clinical about the cap. Nikola Vukcevic's number sits in the low 20s clean, matchable, and not the kind of boat anchor that detonates your flexibility. Under apron rules, we can't take back more salary than we send. Aggregation is restricted in certain scenarios, and we lose tools once we cross specific thresholds. Translation: any mega deal must be tightly engineered. You don't spray 5 contracts at the wall and hope the math sticks. You build 2 or 3 clean columns, each with a basketball purpose. That's why this chatter doesn't die. Vukcevic is the rare center whose salary band, age profile, and shooting package align with both our constraints and our needs. Now to basketball. Vooch is not a Lob City 5. He's a half-court surgeon. Pick and pop above the break to short roll, one dribble into the elbow, eyes always up. He runs DHOs like a point center, buys time for shooters to breathe, and turns simple horn sets into option trees. He doesn't need to live at the rim to bend coverages. His pump and go from the arc forces the big to lead the paint, and that unlocks Steph's back cuts, 45 cuts from our wings, and the hammer action that's been the heartbeat of this dynasty. On nights when teams blitz Steph to take the ball out of his hands, a stretch 5 who can catch at 24 feet, pivot, and throw the skip on time isn't luxury, it's oxygen. Defensively, he's a scheme player. He's not the shot eraser that terrifies drivers. He's the positional big who wins possessions by being on time, on angle, and on the glass. Paired with Draymond's quarterbacking, his job becomes narrower. Box out first, contest second, communicate always. Our best playoff defenses have been 5-man organisms. Give us a center who clears one defensive problem, defensive rebound security, without creating 3 new ones, and our scheme takes care of the rest. That's the bet here. Rebounding consistency plus floor spacing equals playoff stability. I want to show you the shape of the offense if this happens. Imagine early offense with Steph flowing into a drag screen from Vooch at 28 feet. The defense has to pick, switch it and live with the mismatch on the pop, or trail and give Steph daylight. On dead balls, we flip the horns twist. Vooch catches high. Steph in a wing split below. Vooch dribbles once, flips the DHO. And the weak side corner lifts into a cut that forces the low man to choose between a layup and a corner three. In crunch time, we go Spain pick and roll out of a stack look, but instead of the roll, Vooch short pops to the nail. Draymond slips behind the help for the dunker spot. That's not theory. That's film waiting to happen. Let's talk costs. Because nothing in this league is free, and you deserve the truth with all the lights on. The rumor that keeps resurfacing has a spine. Chicago asked for true upside, not just expiring money. That means the first name in every version from their side is Jonathan Kuminga. Young, ascending, two-way flashes, starter equity now, all-star possibilities later. From our side, that's the pound of flesh that hurts. And that's why you don't even open that door unless you believe the trade returns a top 50 player who solves a structural issue today. Around that spine, you build the salary bridge one rotation wing or guard whose number gets you the matching band. And then you dial in the draft compensation. It's not just 2 firsts. Under modern trade philosophy, it's 1 unprotected or lightly protected first, 1 protected with smart roll downs, and at least 1 swap that gives the seller upside if your bet goes sideways. There are 2 frameworks I can stand behind as realistic and league office proof. Framework 8x swap architecture. Kuminga as the headline, a rotation piece to match salary, and 2 firsts plus a swap. The sweetener is a second or a pick swap escalation clause that converts if both teams hit certain thresholds. Think playoff advancement tiers. Framework B3 team relief valve. You reroute our rotation piece to a third team that covets his archetype. Attach a protected first to pay that tax. Chicago receives Kuminga plus a cleaner cap outlook. And we receive Vasevic while taking back a low-minute filler from the third team to balance roster spots. Both frameworks live inside apron limits and Stepien guardrails if you space the outgoing first and protect them properly. What about timing? You can split this into 3 windows. Window 1, pre-deadline maneuvering, when teams still tell themselves stories, but the strongest ones start acting. Window 2, the final week before the deadline, when bids get real because everyone's leverage is perishable. Window 3, July, when the books open, picks reset, and sign and trade creativity becomes oxygen. If this becomes real, my read is simple. It's either a February decision born from urgency or a July decision born from structure. There's no in between. Here's the heartbeat moment you've been waiting for. The version of the rumor with the most internal traction again, rumor. Not announcement centers on Vasevic to the Warriors with Kuminga plus a salary bridge going to Chicago. And draft compensation that starts with 1 strong first and a swap, with a second first dependent on protections. Variations exist with a third team stepping in to take a veteran wing and send Chicago either a pick or a prospect. That's the shape. That's why this conversation won't go away. It's financially viable, basketball literate, and mutually coherent. Chicago gets younger and more flexible. We get size, shooting, and a half-court stabilizer who makes Steph's life simpler in May. Now, let's be just as clear about the downsides. You lose a runway to the future in Kuminga. You add age to a core that already lives on experience. You invite matchup challenges against elite vertical rim threats who drag you into deep drops. You ask your defense to be sharper at the point of attack because Vooch is at his best when he's not cleaning up. 3 mistakes at once. And you own the tax consequences, which means you have to hit on minimums and 2 ways like they're lottery tickets you can't afford to miss. If we swing and miss, we're older, more expensive, and with fewer picks. That's real dot rotation dash-wise. Here's how I pilot it on day 1. Starting unit, Steph at the point of the spear, a 2-way wing who can guard up a position, Vooch at the 5. and the veteran glue who organizes the defense. Off the bench, your first sub is a connector guard to keep the offense humming. Then a downhill wing who lives at the line to change the tempo. Plus a high motor big who soaks up physical minutes in matchups where you need more verticality. The minutes map matters with a stretch 5. You stagger Vooch with non-Steph units to run DHO offense through him, saving Steph's legs and punishing second units that try to switch everything and live with your role players. In closing time, you'll have 3 looks. 5 out close, Vooch popping, Dre at the 4 as a short roll passer. Power close, Vooch at the nail, 2-shooter space, Dre screening guard to guard. And switch punish close, hunt the mismatch, post splits, hammer weak side. Let's drill into matchups because that's where series are won. Against Denver-style hubs, Vooch's strength is wrestling on the block and forcing catch angles farther out, while help darts in from the baseline instead of top down to avoid the skip past death. Against switch and swarm teams, his value spikes. Slip screens become layups. Ghost actions force indecision, and his quick release from the top of the key punishes show and recover. Against teams that ride athleticism and pace, you respond with physicality and processing. Slow their first read. Own the glass and make them defend a DHO maze for 18 seconds. This is why the fit is real. He changes what opponents have to guard. What's Chicago's incentive beyond the obvious reset? It's timeline coherence. Kuminga's arc lines up with a youth movement. Moving Vasevic's money gives them optionality for the next cycle, and the picks let them tell their fans there's a North Star. If they believe they've maxed out with the current core, this is how you exit with a plan instead of a shrug. For us, it's the inverse. You trade tomorrow's maybe for today's yes, because Steph is still a singular advantage. And the West demands force multipliers, not patient sermons. Let me put numbers to philosophy without pretending they're gospel. A stretch 5 with a career 3-point clip hovering around high 30s on real volume shifts your shot profile enough to move your offensive rating in playoff context, where every half-court possession is a math exam. Add the defensive rebound rate of a double-digit board guy, and your second-chance differential stops bleeding. Even with average rim deterrence, the combination of glass, spacing, and decision-making typically nets out as a positive playoff player, especially next to the greatest shooter ever. That's the bet. Not a perfect player, but the right set of imperfections for our strengths. Now, the human element. The locker room matters. Bringing in a veteran big who speaks the language of playoff basketball calms possessions. He's not coming to be a star. He's coming to be the 3rd or 4th best player on any given night. And the reason 3 role players look better than their minimum contracts. For Steph, it means more clean relocations and fewer trips into double teams with nowhere to pass. For our wings, it means attacking tilted floors instead of loaded ones. For Draymond, it means fewer minutes wrestling giants and more minutes playing free safety. I won't pretend there aren't reasons to hesitate. If you believe Kuminga is a future All-NBA wing, you don't do this. If you think the defensive drop-off at the 5 is a ticking bomb against the very best, you don't do this. If you fear the cap squeeze will choke out your bench, you don't do this. But if you believe in the power of fit, if you trust our developmental pipeline to keep supplying low-cost role players, and if you see the value of making the game easier for Steph in the last truly elite years of his prime, you make the call. You put an adult at the 5 who can pass, shoot, rebound, and think. And you accept that the bill comes due in picks and potential. Before I close, I want you in this conversation. Tell me your package below. Would you send Kuminga in a headline for a 34-year-old stretch 5 if the draft cost is 1 unprotected, 1 protected, plus a swap? Would you prefer a 3-team build that saves a role player you love at the cost of an extra protected first? Do you see the defensive trade-offs as manageable in our scheme, or do you think the playoffs will expose them on switches and in space? Lay out your protections top 8, then top 6, then seconds, and make the case. I'm pinning the smartest frameworks, so Dub Nation can pressure test them together. My concise read on the news itself is this. The Vasevic to Warriors rumor isn't clickbait. It's cap real and basketball literate. The most credible shape has Chicago asking for Kuminga, a salary bridge, and multi-year draft compensation. In return, we get a stretch five who stabilizes the glass, organizes the half court, and extends Steph's window by making the offense simpler at the highest levels. Risky? Absolutely. But the logic tracks, and the path is there if our front office chooses audacity over comfort. If you found value in this, subscribe and keep the bell on. This channel lives at the intersection of rumor and reason-fast updates, hard cap truth, and film-first analysis that respects your time and your brain. Drop your trade frameworks. Tell me where I'm too aggressive or too conservative, and make some noise. The league hears the bay when we're aligned. I'll be back the moment this heats up. Until then, keep your head cool and your heart loud, because when the right big meets the right shooter, June stops feeling like a memory and starts feeling like a plan.